Now let's try to understand and get an overview of these CNNs. So these again are a class of neural networks. The difference is they will take images as input. And I'm saying mostly because they might not take images, they might take something else as well. Okay. And what they will do is, given that image as input, they will make predictions about that image. And depending upon like what problem you're trying to solve, they will the prediction will change. If it's classification, they will say that, okay, if the class is present or not. It could be localization, then they will have to give the bounding box as well, and so on and so forth. A basic structure of a convolutional neural network will look something like this. And again, it will vary a lot, but most of these components will be there when you train or when you build your own convolutional neural network. Okay, so let's try to understand the components of this architecture here. This is the input. So this is the input image, and it could be grayscale image. It could be a colored RGB image. Depending upon that, it will have like, let's say 1 or 3 channels. And then another important parameter is the resolution. Okay, that will like what's the height and width of this image. That will define like how many pixels you have. Then the second layer, usually you can say the first layer is the convolution operation. Okay, the layer is not being shown here, but these arrows actually represent that layer. So this will be the convolution layer, and this layer will actually convert this image into some form of feature maps. Okay, if you remember, like in the previous lecture, I said you are going from volume to volume. So in this case, the input volume is this image, and the convolution layer is actually converting that to another volume, which are the set of feature maps. And don't worry about like what these feature maps are, how we get these feature maps. We are going to go into detail of that, like every bit of that. So at the end of this lecture, you will be able to understand like what we are trying to cover in this overview. Okay, so then you might have some kind of subsampling where you try to reduce like the number of activations or feature maps you have. And you will see I will use the words feature maps and activations interchangeably. So both means the same thing. Okay, it's actually corresponding to the data which is flowing in your network. So then if you do subsampling, then the size of these activations or the feature maps might reduce. And then again, you can have more convolution layers. Again, you will get like set of feature maps. Again, you can have subsampling, you can reduce it. Then eventually you will have a fully connected layer, which will give you the prediction. And this fully connected layer is actually the MLP, the multi-layer perceptron we were discussing earlier. Okay, so that is also a part of your CNN architecture. And again, it depends. Like some of the recent CNN architectures, you will see that you don't have this fully connected layer. But again, that's just a variation. So it's an option whether you want to use it or not. But the earlier CNNs, they used to have this fully connected layer to give the final prediction. Now, the CNNs are not like recently developed. And I think in late 90s, I think in 1998, the photo I showed you earlier, Jan Lukun. So they developed this LANet architecture. And if you look at this architecture, it actually resembles the one I showed you earlier, right? Exactly the same thing. The only difference is we have a grayscale image. And again, that's due to like the computation power. Back then, we didn't have like the powerful GPUs, right? And you can see like the input resolution, it's just 32 cross 32. But rest, it's the same. I mean, you have the convolution layer, you get the feature maps. This is subsampling, you reduce the feature map, convolutions, again, some transformations. Okay. So whenever you are applying these convolutions, you're actually transforming your activations to a different set of activations, or you're transforming your input image to like some set of feature maps. So that transformation is going on. And that the transformation is nothing but like the linear combination, or you can say the filtering operation, which we have been learning like throughout this course. And we'll come to that. Okay, then we have this fully connected layers. And in this case, we have 2 fully connected layers, and finally like 10 outputs. You can see this resembles like the multi-layer perceptron, which we discussed in the previous lecture. So 10 outputs because I think it was developed for digits. So if it's digits, then 10 outputs. Of course, for characters, like you might change it to 26. Okay, so CNNs are not new. People have been working on this prior to this. The issue was back then we didn't have computation power. We didn't have enough data. So the first strong results, they came in 2012. And the architecture was called AlexNet, and we are going to do a case study on this architecture later in this lecture. So the reason was not like innovation in terms of architecture. AlexNet, in fact, used the same architecture which we are seeing here in Linux. Okay, so the only difference was the availability of data and the availability of computation, like a lot of computation power. Okay, so what happened in 2012 was there was a ImageNet or image classification competition, which used to be there like in computer vision community. It's still there. So this was called like a large scale visual recognition challenge, and researchers were like improving every year, maybe 1 points or 2 points. But in 2012, the error rate was improved by like almost more than 10%. So it dropped from 26 to 15. So the next best entry was 26%, which was not using CNNs. So this was like a big breakthrough. And that's when like the deep learning revolution started. And that was the architecture used in AlexNet. And you can see like it's almost same as what we saw in Linux. Okay, this is the input. And again, we are going to talk more this architecture in more detail when we do the case study. All right, so it started in 2012, but today, I mean, CNNs, they are used like everywhere in all the problems, right? And this we have covered in the first lecture as well. We saw that we use CNNs for classification, we use them for object detection, we use for semantic segmentation. And later in the course, we will talk about some of these architectures of these CNN architectures, which are very popular and very, very good in, let's say, object detection or object classification. I mean, they can be used for image captioning. We have talked about style transfer as well. Now, earlier I said like images are used as input mostly. So what I meant is we can use like some other kind of modality as well. Okay, so we can use natural language as well as input to CNNs. And the idea here is, let's say we are doing text classification. So what we do is, if this is your sentence in some of the languages, okay, so a sentence will have a sequence of words. What we do is each word can be converted to a vector. And there are different ways to do that. We will not go into detail of that. So word to vector is one such algorithm which converts each word into a vector, let's say of 300 dimension. Of course, you can have like 100 dimension as well. So what you can do is you can convert each word into a vector. And for a sentence, if you stack them together, that's going to give you a matrix. And then you can, if this is a matrix, you can use CNNs. All right. You can use this for audio research as well. Audio is like just one-dimensional signal, but you can represent that one-dimensional signal as a spectrogram as well, which looks something like this. And once you have this like a matrix form of input, you can apply CNNs. So if you can convert your data to a matrix format, either 2D matrix or 3D matrix or 4D matrix, then you can use CNNs. Okay, so if it's audio, you can use 1D. And this audio is like, you can even like just take the raw signal. You don't have to even convert that to spectrograms. All right. So it will change the operation you are using. If it's a one-dimensional signal, you will use 1D convolution. If it's high dimensional, let's say videos, you will use 3D convolution. All right. For images, it's 2-dimensional. So you use 2D convolution.